Welcome back, everybody, to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven, and I'm here with my very special guest, Elana Freeland and Billy Hayes. And I know, Elana, you guys might want to. Do you want to add on an extra hour, or where you at?
Well, we could. Billy, how are you doing?
I'm fine. I don't have to do much.
I know you were kind of wanting to do 1 hour, but I'm really happy to have you for 2. So just give me a shout and let me know.
Well, what if I went for we just go for a while longer, and then you have call-ins? Do you have questions?
If we do, yeah, we can take calls if you prefer, and we also, I'm sure, we'll have some chat questions as I spit it out. But yeah, certainly we can do that.
But right now, I'd like to finish my thought that I had before the break, if I could.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
I think I don't know how much your listeners know about the history of science in the U.S., but there are two giants who were buried by the scientific community. The one you already know, Nikola Tesla, and his research was stolen. It's even posited that he was killed by the FBI. The other is John Worrell Keely. And John Worrell Keely lived in Philadelphia in the late 19th century. And Keely was able to build amazing precisioned metal machines, many, many of them, and then take I can't remember if it was a quarter cup or a half cup of water, put it in the machine, and then the machine could create electricity for his entire apartment building for months, just months. But the kicker was this: the machine only obeyed him. If anyone else tried to do that, it would never work. And so this idea that a machine is compatible to certain individuals is a really fascinating idea for the future. Of course, it irritated J.P. Morgan to no end, because he, of course, had in mind that he would steal that technology, as he stole so many things from so many people. But the machine would none of the machines would obey anyone else. Okay, with that in mind, at the turn of the 19th to the 20th century, the word ether was struck from all scientific documents. Einstein was still using the term ether to describe this great force in the universe that Tesla also discovered. And he had a name for it. It was something like tele-something force, teledynamic force. But it's very interesting that the word was purposely struck. And the story is this, that two scientists, Heaviside and Gibbs, had done an experiment and disproven the existence of ether. Well, that story is not true. And it was simply a ruse. And I'm not quite sure why they struck that term, other than perhaps it, as with many things in the United States, it went underground and went black, as we say now, so that only the hand-chosen scientists would have access to the concept and the term for the concept. So that said, I would like to, in the next book, go into some detail about Tom Bearden's ideas of scalar energy. And Billy, you may have something to say about Tom Bearden. And then I'd like to look at Keely. I'd like to look at the term ether. I'd like to look at the how if there were an electromagnetic disk, how it might work, what gravity really is, because E.T. Whittaker had a very different concept of gravity than the one that we have all accepted. I mean, I've been in a state of doubt for years now that I've discovered almost everything I learned in college was not true.
Right.
So I have been on a huge quest with masses of files that I am staring at here in order to understand what is true. So that's my, that'll be the historical section, which is, I'm a historian, so that's very exciting. But to set some things straight so that when we look at this technology, we're not just sort of out in like guessing at what the agendas coming up are.
Right.
That's what I want. I want to take back what was stolen from our heritage and put it down on paper and use it to look at the space fence. Billy, say something about Tom Bearden.
Well, Tom Bearden has more or less led all the theories of what's been going on for the last 20 years. He has put out everything about HAARP, for sure, about the terminologies, the theories, the principles of how things react with HAARP and radio frequencies. And he's been right on, true factual. I mean, everything he has said has been true. And it's just astounding that there are attempts to quiet him, just as a lot of references to Bernard Eastland have been hushed or gone black, as you say.
Yeah.
That's pretty. Go ahead. No, I was going to say that's really interesting, and I'm not surprised at all that people are trying to shut everybody up when it comes down to exposing this type of thing. Now, it is a weaponization of technology in general, whether it's used for good or evil. That's quite obvious, and I think we can all come to the conclusion that there's been a lot of control manipulation going on across the board here on this world. And coming from my experience, and I'm sure yours with the mind control, Billy, and of course, in yours as well, Elana, that there's definitely something afoot that's not necessarily in the highest good for our evolution. Now, would you agree on that, or what is your perception?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
in fact,
definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. But what I mean is it's been in the wrong hands for at least 100 years, to my knowledge, kind of a little bit over. I mean, since the word ether was taken out, the word ether is extremely important. It's the closest we have today to that term would be what's called dark matter.
Right. Well, then there's the esoteric level. I mean, because and if you're into the occult like I am in mysticism and you understand ethers, etheric energies, etheric body, and that's all pertaining to consciousness and, of course, part of the four-body system, which is the energy body. So it all correlates, if you ask me. And, of course, there's a thin line between mysticism and spirituality and, of course, science in general.
Well, I actually have thought that the reason that the word ether was struck may have been because it was related to the spiritual. And that could be where perhaps they were embarrassed by the word, but they did, as you know, I mean, maybe you don't know, they did not replace it with another word. They just struck the whole concept of a universal force that the ancient Vedas and many old documents talk about. But at the same time, the Smithsonian and the National Geographic Society, both of which are loaded with Freemasons, I might add, they struck a tremendous amount of archaeological evidence of ancient civilizations being here, etc. So there seemed to be a concerted effort around the turn of the 19th to the 20th century in a controlling knowledge. And as you know, knowledge is power, scientia est potentia. So it makes sense to me that it would have been done, but it was so blatant, and yet they didn't have nearly the media coverage that we have now. That was probably done by a little committee, and probably hardly anyone even knew that it had happened.
Exactly. And I have a bunch of questions here in the chat. So whenever y'all want to answer those, just let me know. I've posted them here. So if you want me to read it. Okay.
Sure.
There's a question from Jerry B here. It's any thoughts on the nano oil in the Falkland Islands?
Billy?
Well, the Russians have been really chasing after everything in Antarctica and the Falkland.
Yeah, I don't really. When I think of I'm not up on that. It's nano oil. I would like more detail on that. That's very interesting.
I think they call it the black oil, but I'm not real sure on that either.
It's a heavier oil. It's so heavy that they have to, when they utilize it, they have to mix a thinner oil with it, or a tar or crude with it. It's almost too potent to refine, so they have to break it down.
Does it occur only in certain areas of the world, Billy?
Yes, only to the south of the equator and in the Antarctic.
So I wonder if that had something to do with why England brought on that whole Falkland War.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's about as much as I know about it.
Very good. Well, thank you on that one. And here's another one from Olive. It says, ask the guest if it is radio transmission they're controlling the brain. And that's a little choppy the way he's typed it in, but that's the way it reads. So are radio transmissions controlling the brain? I guess that's what he's asking.
Most definitely. But the biggest thing that we have to have a dilemma with is the action of subliminal messaging by the media, especially the news media. They are so far up on the hill of the principles of MK Ultra that when they do a newscast, they suggest their means and their thought to you, and subliminally to find something guilty before you can make a decision on it. They decide for you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
For instance, this terrorism thing that's going on right now, this is all suggested. If the media wasn't there, we wouldn't know about it. In fact, we wouldn't have an opinion on it. Mm-hmm. The media is the controlling factor, and we have to put this into the electronic factor too, because the emphasis that they put on it, you can see in a subliminal suggestion of the screen blinks, it shutters, they change scenes in a certain way where it would be a quicken change of a scene, or there'd be a fluttering going into the scene. Mm-hmm. It activates your brain to make a suggestive manner.
Right.
Exactly. So the pulses are there. I'll give you a good example. You remember the Teletubbies?
Oh, yeah.
The background on the Teletubbies would cause many children to have seizures.
That's right.
And this is that pulsing. This pulsing that goes on is a very controlling thing. It can be a visual. It can be a radio frequency, or a pulse of radio frequencies. What people don't realize is when a radio frequency goes out, it hits everything on this earth. Exactly. It isn't just the antenna going into that radio. It penetrates everything on this earth. If it's a pulse, then it creates an energy that pulsates into other things such as crystals, metals, and anything that's resonant. And that creates a electrical discharge.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
We feel that. Our bodies feel that.
Right, we're conductors.
So, Billy, what is it being? You're staring at a television. You're looking at not the Teletubbies, but maybe a news show. What is it about the digital? When we went from analog to digital, what did that do to this process?
It made it sharper, more impending, more contrastic. It delivers more messaging in a period of time, multiple messagings. Mm-hmm. Whereby in the old analog, it would only happen in certain sequences. Now they can run this all through a program, and you don't really notice it, but it's there. And your mind is thinking all the time. When you get on a cell phone and you're playing games, you're feeling these pulses. There is an excitement that comes back when you're playing with a cell phone. That you can see the difference in people's attitudes and change in their personalities, watching people go from 1G to 2G to 3G.
Mm-hmm. It must be why they're so addicted.
Exactly. I mean, people who are getting 3G and 4G for the first time, you can see them change. Their whole personality change in less than a day.
Mm-hmm. That's very disturbing.
Yeah, I don't even own a cell phone because I always tell people I'm not important enough to know where I am 24/7. I just use this terrible this cordless phone, which I really should not even be using that. And I think that that does answer the question. Like, is it radio frequency? Well, yes, but it's not the one that people think of. I think there's a tendency to leap to the most exotic or the most far out idea of mind control, when really it's been in front of us ever since television was given to us in the 50s. I had the good fortune of not being raised with a television, so my imagination is still somewhat alive. I find that I taught for years in Waldorf schools and then in high schools, and I find that students' imaginations are just running downhill now. It's as though and they can't put that cell phone away. They just can't. It's so enticing. It's sort of like Odysseus when he was coming back from Troy to Greece, and he stopped and saw Circe and all these goddess figures, and he would just become hypnotized by it. And that's exactly what this technology is doing. It's hypnotizing people, and they're taking selfie after selfie after selfie of themselves. It's really frightening. It's absolutely frightening.
I agree. I think it's also really dumbed them down to a point where they're not even thinking. They're not rational at all.
No, but the dumbing down began a long time ago. I caught the last good education in New York City, in public ed and in private ed. And I remember sitting down, I can't remember what year, but Global 2000 is quite a document. It's very thick. It's like 700 pages or some ridiculous amount of committee work. Oh, it's so boring. But in it, you begin to see how the dumbing down is going to be done. And boy, it has worked.
Yeah,
big time.
Absolutely. Well, it's quite concerning, without a doubt. I mean, it's almost to a point where I feel like we can't turn back, and we're so calibrated for the technology as a society and race that we're just going full speed ahead into this transhumanism. And of course, I think that's losing a lot of our free will.
Well, and that's why I concentrate on saying to people, clean your house, look at your lifestyle. You've got to begin at home, or it will always sound false. All your activism, your public displays of knowledge, etc. We have to begin with ourselves. So I have no television. I've never even owned a television. I have no cell phone, and but I'm totally addicted to this computer, right? I mean, I am at this computer so much as
window to the world.
Writer. As a writer, at least, Billy, I have an excuse for being at my computer.
Oh, Lord.
Billy has 5 computers there, don't you? 5.
Yeah. Surveillance, Billy, or what?
Pardon?
What are you doing with those? Surveillance?
I just maintain, just maintain.
Well, he's a genius. He's a genius at computers and, at hopping around the world, and nobody knows where he is. Oh, yeah. If I could do that, I might do that. Have 5 computers as well. So anyway, that answers that question.
Yeah.
Okay.
And let's see here. We have, this is from Jer Bear. Does the guest know anything related with Tesla and Black Satellite?
Oh,
I don't know if he's talking about the Black Knight or not. I'm not sure about that.
I think that's what Jer's.
Okay.
He and I have talked about this before.
Okay.
Who has, Billy?
Jer Bear.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, do you want to say something about it? I'm interested.
Well, I'm not sure which one he's talking about. Is he talking about the Black
Jer Bear? Which one is it? Let's see if he texts us in chat. But I suspect it might be the Black Satellite when he's talking about Tesla. That's, I don't know where he is. He's in
there were no satellites when Tesla was around, were there, Billy?
No, but this is I think he's talking about this obstacle that's coming in that they latched onto, and it looks like a large craft or something coming in. They're trying to identify it by frequency, and things just ain't going right with it.
Who's they? You mean NASA or somebody?
Oh yeah, NASA's locked onto it. They even had pictures of it.
Oh, well, you can send me something of it. Do you have something that you've come across on the net? I'd like to see that.
I think it's the Black Knight he's talking about.
The Black Knight. Knight.
Yes, right, Jer Bear? Please text me in chat.
He says,
Yeah.
he says yes.
Is there another question while he's...
Yeah, no, he said yes. It's the Black Knight satellite. And actually, there's a question from Andy here, which is how much scalar technology is being used on populations, and can cell towers be used as weapons? I think we know the answer to that one.
Oh, yes. Cell towers can be used as weapons.
Yeah, we answered that 4 times already tonight.
Right. And as far as the scalar, that is really what the HAARP tech is. When you're saying scalar, you're talking about ground waves. And these are very, very long ELFs. And they go, as Billy said, they go through everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we are in scalar. There are times when people will poo-poo the word scalar. I have no idea why. I don't know if they're disinformation people or just misinformed, but scalar is the name of the game now. And I had a funny thing happen, as long as I'm getting casual here. When I was sitting at Cowgirl's bar having a beer with a friend in Santa Fe, the guy next to me was talking. He was an older man. He was talking to a young man, and the young man mentioned that he worked at Los Alamos National Labs. And I saw my opportunity. So I said, well, that's great. I said, excuse me, but, I read this term. I just don't know quite what it is. I heard that you're doing quite a bit up there with interferometry. And his face literally blanched, and he turned his back on us immediately and left. So I assume that that scalar interferometry, and interferometry is, it sounds like a daunting word, but all it means is that there's an interference. Mm-hmm. Right, Billy? There's just an interference. It's crossing over.
Well, it's that plus the identification of certain waves.
Interesting. Okay, I have a question for you from myself here. So the scalar waves, say they're deploying a scalar wave and they're heading towards a target. They want to ping a target, whether it's a person or an object. If the person is able to interact with that wave, can they actually send a ping back to the source?
Well, people have to understand, scalar is the adaptation of phasing waves together in a manner that it gives a reflection back.
Okay.
By timing and phasing, you can do distance, location of specific items or specific size or specific rhythms.
Okay.
Or say, Billy, just say you do something to a weather system across the world.
Well, that's exactly what they've been doing, is utilizing this phasing. Before they were doing it with high power, and that's gone. Now they are able to adapt the HAARP technology to low power by utilizing the essentials of a vacuum tube. All the components of a vacuum tube are now in play within our atmosphere and our Earth. There's a ground plate. There's a heater. There's grids. There's everything that takes to make a vacuum tube, amplifier, are now in our air, in our atmosphere, including utilizing the vacuum of higher altitudes. The higher you go, the more vacuum you have. So right there's the vacuum of a vacuum tube. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's just what they're utilizing. Now they can maintain ionization and charging of the air and use heaters, electronic heaters, to heat up portions of the atmosphere to ionize it, not to actually heat the air, but to ionize the air, make it more transferable of ionization.
Right.
And by maintaining a high voltage power supply, which is supplied by hurricanes, typhoons, storms, lightning, wind farms. Wind farms generate a massive amount of static electricity that is discharged into the air.
I think we just have a caller here, and I don't know. Oh, wait a second here. I don't know if I can accept the call. Darn it. Hang on, you guys.
You'll knock yourself out.
I will. Are you guys still there?
Oh, is it a collective call?
I don't know. Are you there, caller 541?
I am.
Oh, my goodness. That's a shock because I wasn't sure. I was going to put the studio on hold. Okay. Do you have a question?
Well, this is fantastic. I would please give me her name. His name is Billy.
Billy Hayes and Elana Freeland. And who are you?
My name is Ray.
Hi, Ray.
I'm from Oregon. Elana
Elana.
Freeman.
Freeland, the way America should be.
And your books, where can we get them from? Amazon or?
Yes, Amazon. It's Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth. You can also get it from your local bookstore, or they can just get it from their distributor. It's put out by Farrell House.
Is that Joseph Farrell?
No, not the Ferrell, although Joseph Farrell used to publish his books through Farrell House. It's actually the Wolf Farrell, Feral House.
Okay. Now, you have said several things that have been absolutely fascinating. You really have got this pinned down on so many levels. You have a new book coming out then?
Yes. But it's being written right now, so I can't.
Oh, okay.
It'll be done within the year. I would say it'll take me about 10 months.
Okay, and also you are a teacher at a Steiner school.
I was, yes, for years. I started 4 Waldorf schools in Washington State.
How about over in Sandpoint there?
No, not Sandpoint.
No? Yeah, there's a Waldorf school in Sandpoint.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Sandpoint, Idaho. I was supposed to come there and give a chemtrails talk, but that fell through.
Well, now, so you mentioned, I would love to hear what I have read. As you know, I don't know if he is the most prolific man. If you count his speeches, if he's the most prolific man that ever lived, but I would love to hear what you have read and what your take on what Steiner predicted as far as this goes, and what he said, and your thoughts on that, if you might.
Oh, well, that's great. I did say one thing. I don't know if you heard me, but one of the things Steiner said was that it was our destiny is inevitable to merge with machines, but before that should happen, we should develop a morality to the degree that we can then develop in a relationship with the machine, that it becomes a moral technology that serves the future of humanity. And the way I see it now is the technology that is taking control now, that Billy Hayes and I have been talking about, is, as usual, trying to bring something too early when we are not developed enough to moralize the machines, in which case it may look more like that film, the third of the trilogy, The Matrix, when the War of the Machines happens. And Steiner does talk about the possibility of a war of machines.
Huh. Do you remember where that's at?
Yeah, I can direct you easily to the people who are doing that. The anthroposophic Steiner people in Europe are very heavily into this, and they're called Anthro News. ANTH. Actually, they're called. Hang on, just a moment.
And caller, after this one question, I'm going to let you go. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Anthro Tech News is the name of it, and if there were a way, Raven, I wouldn't mind, Solaris, if he had my contact details. This person.
Okay, perfect. Do you want that?
Yes, I do.
Excellent. I'll send them over. Yeah, perfect.
Great. Thank you for doing that.
I appreciate you calling in. What's that?
How do I get it?
We can send it on Skype. I'll keep your number and I can just send it over.
I don't have Skype.
Well, I see your number here. Is that your number?
You can just call me. Can you just call me? That would be great.
I'll find a way to get you the information. Let's put it that way.
Sorry,
right?
Solaris.
That's okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Very good. Excellent. And we have another question here. I guess this is another one from Jerry B. Can HAARP technology be utilized for anything positive that benefits the Earth?
Billy?
Well, yeah. Its intention in the beginning was for good. It's once the military got a hold of it, it went array. Of course, this is always what happens.
Always the way.
Mm-hmm.
Once the government and the military get a hold of it, they take it away and they do it for the destiny of of making weapons out of it, no matter what.
I mean, like tornadoes, huh, Billy?
Right.
They could make tornadoes not be so destructive. They could make
Well,
hurricanes not be so destructive.
right. They could make Tesla's dream come true. They could pass power,
Free energy, right?
through the air,
Yes.
with no problem at all. In fact, that's part of the Aurora project, is supplying a power source that is beyond our Earth to a craft that is in flight.
Exactly. Well, what is your impression of CERN?
I'm scared of it.
Yeah, me too. I'm scared of it.
They're supposed to fire it back up, I think, in March.
Yeah, exactly. Only God knows.
Well, the reason I ask is because when they power that thing up, of course it's going to create anomalies, or it certainly can, across the board here. Now, you were talking about pulses and all this other technology that they're deploying right now, that I'm wondering if the CERN is going to amplify that or create even more of an anomaly across the board here on the planet.
Well, it interferes with the magnetosphere.
Right.
And we only can guess what it's doing beyond our Earth.
Exactly.
We have no idea of what attraction or repulsion we're creating in outer space.
Good point.
And what the repercussions will be.
That's another scenario altogether.
Yeah, and Billy, mention what they've done to the ionosphere.
Oh, yeah. HAARP was such a heavy hitter that it pushed the ionosphere and bulged it. It thinned it so thin that there are holes punched all through the ionosphere from the old HAARP. This is one of the reasons that Easton was wanting to go to something else. He was trying to put a hold on everything because he was in fear that we were destroying our ionosphere.
And Eastland was terribly used.
I mean, this is what happens. The atomic bomb, Tesla series, everything that ever comes out becomes a disaster created by the government and the military.
Right, it's negligence. They push the envelope without any control. Now, can that be repaired, the ionosphere with the holes?
No.
Not at all. Not through any type of transmission?
Not in our time.
But I mean, even now they're talking about getting rid of the Van Allen belts. I mean,
boy.
it's endless, these guys.
Well,
and yet I want to say, just so people know, I am not one of those naysayers about humanity. I believe humanity is like a child. We're in the 21st century. We're like a 21-year-old. We don't know quite how to control our leaders, take responsibility for our own actions and our lack of actions. And we have allowed some psychopaths and sociopaths, we have given them carte blanche. And when I wrote the Sub Rosa America fictional history books about America since Kennedy, I actually had tea with Kennedy in the Rose Garden when I was 15 years old. It was a huge experience for me. And 4 months later, he was dead. And I had to go and give talks to civic groups that had paid for my trip to Washington, and rooms full of sobbing people. And it's only since all these years, 50 years have gone by since then, that I have realized that that was a seminal moment for America. And so I wrote these books. It took 20 years to finish all 5 because I had to do a heck of a lot of research to figure out how the sociopaths and psychopaths had gotten control, how they had been in every single, the same people that were involved in the assassination were involved in many other things, like the Iran-Contra affair. There was George H.W. Bush. He had been the SAC, the special agent in charge for the CIA, on the radio in Dallas on that day. He was the man who was directing the shooter teams. So, I mean, it just was endless. And I remember sitting just, I love that British phrase, gobsmacked. I was amazed that these people were rewarded over and over and over again. And then there was Operation Paperclip and Alan Dulles and yada, 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 so much. And this is a piece of that, the same mentality. And everybody had hopes for Obama, everybody had hopes for this, that. No, there has been no leadership in that sense of this country since John Kennedy. Mm-hmm. And so now, the only thing I can imagine, which would be a 100th monkey sort of thing, is if we all really took responsibility for our own lives, cleaned them up, got our health. Goodbye, doctor. I haven't been to a doctor since I was 13 myself, and I'm 67.
Bravo.
I followed a macrobiotic diet all these years. So, take responsibility so that we can really take hold of the consciousness we need to meet these psychopaths. That is my hope that drives me to write these books and spend all this time.
And I certainly appreciate everything you've been doing to awaken everybody here on this planet, because it's certainly well needed, without a doubt. It's just discipline. Bottom line is just discipline, breaking away from the what I call maybe just too much exposure to technology. At some point in the continuum, people have to take a step out of it, take a step back, and have some balance.
Yes, discipline and a larger picture of one's life. Mm-hmm. One is not one's personality. One is a focal point for nation, culture, race, gender. There's so many things that we are. And to, take responsibility, discipline oneself, but keep the picture big. That's what that's what I'm good at. That's what drives me.
Well, it certainly can tell. Well, the problem here is that with this technology and the abuse of it seems like they're trying to create a very narrow scene of what they want society to become, and a very corralled and controlled environment through the technological interface, which I suspect will be through brain and machine at some point in the continuum. Now, my question to you guys is also exotic particle beam weapons. Do you have any ideas if they're even connected to having these weapons on the moon?
Billy?
Absolutely. We've been shooting at the moon for decades. We're in our 5th decade of shooting at the moon with particle weapons.
From the ground, from here.
From the ground. We've been bouncing lasers off the moon for going on our 5th decade.
What about on the moon itself? Like having the technology on the moon.
Well, the part of the communications that we've had before, when we've landed there, was always setting up a communication link back to the Earth, which included laser and masers.
That's the eye in the sky, Billy.
It's part of it. It's part of it. You have to remember, all these things have been readaptive. Mm-hmm. They started out with one questionable solution, and they wind up with 20. This is the same thing with HAARP. They started out chasing after tomography, and from that, it developed into umpteen thousand different solutions.
Exactly. And now they talk about is it Skynet? Does that have a correlation to what you're talking about with the space fence?
Absolutely. It's all going to all be part of the space fence.
Mm-hmm. When do you think this space fence will be built officially?
It's already started. Already started. It's a matter of service packets being added on. Each phase is a step forward in the ambition of Lockheed and Raytheon in their development of bridging all communications and all solutions into one massive, big electronic machine.
Mm-hmm. That's really disturbing on so many different levels. When you think about freedom and free will and privatizing even a space program, it's almost like you have to go through them to get any access off-world. And my take is, looking down the road, if somebody were to want to space travel in the illusion of, they would have to literally go through these hoops to try to even break orbit with this planet.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. It's for the rich only, rich and the entitled. And I think that film that recently played, I can't remember the name, Elysium.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I think that was I think that we are programmed for the future through our films now, because Hollywood is completely controlled by the CIA. It has diversified so far into the culture. It has assaulted the culture with its ideology. And that movie, Elysium, I was very intrigued by it. And I saw that the Earth had been trashed. And then there was this lovely little satellite sort of elite planet. And I thought that, yeah, that looks like the future, all right.
Mm-hmm. It's very disturbing. Well, do you see this being able to be turned around at all?
In this life?
Yeah.
No.
I don't either. And I hate to say that. And I'm wondering about this array system, and I'm wondering about these grids. Is there a way to dismantle them? Is there a way that we can actually try to take them all down?
Well, I know people. I know eco-warriors. I have a good friend here in town who did it for years. He would make Wilhelm Reich, what he called holy hand grenades, and little cloud busters. And he would go, and he and a team of people, and they're still doing it, not my friend, but other people. And they would go to the cell towers, and they would plant these at the, sometimes just one. All sorts of power grid would go down. And soon a white van would pull up, and they had some device by which they could tell exactly where it was buried, and they would dig it up and toss it in the van and drive on. So I know they work, and I am going to deal with Reich in the book because, again, this is ether technology. This is what Rudolf Steiner talked about, ether technology. Reich called it orgone. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's the same thing. And it is a life force. It is the life force that can combat, neutralize this electromagnetic force that's being used against us. And so I have a cloudbuster in my backyard loaned to me by this very same friend. And I don't know that it has protected me, though I feel very safe for many reasons. But I did notice that this summer, when the trees, and they're mostly pines, grew out around this cloudbuster, they were incredibly green. Nice. And I loved it. It just made me feel good. So I think that people who poo-poo this low-tech technology of Reich's are really foolish. They really need to try it before they poo-poo it, because Wilhelm Reich was killed in a federal penitentiary by our own government forces who stole all his research and then used it for their cloud seeding. Because Reich was into all of that. Anything atmospheric he was into. So, we need to take another look at these low-tech things and not feel so powerless. There are things we have not yet discovered that we can do. I know that.
I very much agree with you. And even the homeopathic route, holistic medicine in general is remarkable on so many different levels through consciousness. Once again, you're dealing with consciousness and the power of the mind and the ability to heal. And a lot of that gets polluted with this dirty electricity and all this misuse of technology. Now, do you, Billy, use anything to block any type of interference?
No, I'm in a whole different world because mine are. I have scars that are rhythmically tuned to the instruments that I work with. The burns that I received have scarred, so it's a whole different world for me. I am you might say I was a guinea pig in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the technology. Definitely. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, as I worked on these systems, while they were live, I would receive RF burns, and RF burns are burnt to a specific length of the frequencies that you're dealing with. And some of these are developed into cysts and tumors in my brain. At first, they called them acronoid cysts. Mm-hmm. But as the technology developed, it became known that these were resonant tumors that were tuned to the frequencies I had dealt with previously in my lifetime. Mm.
Were you able to remove any of those through frequency or no?
Some of them were removed, but the danger of brain tumors is they can't get to them without me losing me.
Right, and of course there's talk of the cell phones completely trashing the brain. Now, obviously, this technology, a lot of what we've been talking about tonight, can be used as a remote assassin weapon. From dropping vitals, from whatever distribution they're using. I mean, it's obvious to me that they can take down somebody remotely if they really wanted to. And of course, this technology just seems like it wreaks havoc on the four-body system. Now, go ahead.
I just lost my wife here about 18 months ago due to that same exact thing. She was out assisting with cleanup after the more tornado went through. Mm-hmm. It also developed tornadoes here in Kansas, and she was out assisting the public in helping clean up the mess. And she went down with burns across her chest and across her back. And there was no account for it. The doctor who took care of her, who signed, just happened to be the same doctor that was taking care of Tim McVeigh's family. He was also the doctor that signed off on death certificates during the trial at Denver, where our motel burnt down. I was one of the witnesses for there, as was Paula. Wow. But the same doctor signed off on those that signed her death certificate.
Oh, jeez.
Within 3 hours after her death, she was cremated.
Mm-hmm.
I requested an autopsy. And the doctors had talked to Paul's mother, and sister and brother, and it became a family situation where they were pointing their finger at me, saying I was a troublemaker.
Oh, jeez.
So her body was disposed of within 3 hours of her death.
But I mean, this is what three-letter agencies do to the people that they make serve them through MK Ultra throughout their lives. This is exactly why Allen Dulles, at the very beginning of the CIA, Eisenhower once said after he was out of office that it was a huge mistake and to allow that. And it was really under Harry Truman that he signed off on the National Security Act that created the CIA. And Harry Truman also said he made a vast mistake by signing that document. It is that these agencies are out of control, and it infuriates me how they treat those whose lives they've stolen.
I so agree with you. I think that if we didn't have those alphabet agencies, we would have had such a wonderful country, if you ask me.
Yeah. And no National Security Act of 1947. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. That's really a shame. My goodness. And we are getting ready to wrap this up in about 10 minutes. So I really do want to thank you both for staying the full 2 hours just about. I really appreciate it. And I would like everybody to know how to get in touch with both of you if they want to contact you, and also how to get your books, Elana.
Well, Billy has a Facebook site for Billy Hayes. Right. He puts up lots of really good stuff on there.
I posted that in chat, by the way, both of yours.
Yeah, good. And I have a Facebook page for my book. It's called Elana Freeland, Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum. That's the name of the Facebook site. It starts out with Elana Freeland. And then there's, of course, my own Facebook page. The book, Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth, is available through Amazon and at your local bookstore. And it may be that the publisher has a few signed copies left. I don't know. And that's the best way to get hold of me. The way I'd like to be gotten hold of is either through my Facebook page or through calling Farrell House and telling them and giving them your information, and then I can contact you.
Awesome. That's wonderful. And once again, I really do want to thank you for everything you're doing, and you as well, Billy. You're phenomenal, both of you, wonderful beings, and I appreciate everything you're doing on this timeline to try to help awaken everybody to what's happening here with all this technology and the muck that's going. I guess it's going in a really strange direction here. Now, with your sequel book, which I'm really anxious to read once you get that finished, it does sound like the end game is transhumanism. Is that pretty much what you're looking at?
Well, Yeah, I mean, at this point, when I think of all I already know, I'm thinking of a large slave class whose nervous systems are and endocrine systems are being hacked into.
Mm-hmm.
But I am certain that it will not work. But I'm going to have to describe, I mean, to me, the book is primarily to describe the system and how it's set up. And that's where Billy's so invaluable to me. And I have a couple of other people, Harold Save being one, who have agreed to be advisors, Jim Lee. I'm so grateful for people who are supporting me in my research and writing. I have a biology background, but I do not have a background in electromagnetics. And it's so fascinating how I'll crawl into bed at night and pick up the latest. I'm reading books on plasma physics and all sorts of things. And it's so exciting to learn these new things. And for some reason, my mind is just opening up to this. If you'd said 10 years ago that I would be doing this now, I would not have believed you. Mm-hmm. So whatever's going on, I'm in service to the planet, to the people, to the generations of children, grandchildren who expect to have a good life here, and I will continue.
Exactly. And at least you can say you put your best foot forward and tried. I mean, like us all. I mean, we're at least trying to get some information out accordingly, and hopefully people will, listen and pay attention, and things will change. I do concern myself with the children in the future, how they're going to function. Are they going to grow up in the womb as hybrids? It's just very strange. And I'm also very interested in so far as you think it might not work. And I'm really that makes me kind of happy to think that, because I can tell you, as somebody who's been interfaced with artificial intelligence, which is a long story, it is the most, it pulls the spirit away from higher consciousness. And it is a real nasty thing. And this is one of the reasons I address this topic in general. Any type of misuse of technology for control and manipulation. I wish we could turn it all around. I really do. And I hope we do. So
Yes. I think because the system is so complex, that it will have its own Achilles heel, definitely.
I agree. Yep. Well, I guess hopefully we'll be around to see it all come to fruition in a positive way, right? And Billy,
yeah.
Do you have anything to add tonight? Billy, you there? He's drinking his coffee.
No, I'm here.
I want to thank you again for chiming in, and sometime I'd love to have you both back. And of course, if you want to just do an hour or whatever you feel like guided to do, you're both wonderful people, and it's been a real pleasure and honor to interview both of you tonight. A real treat for everybody in chat and everybody listening.
Well, thank you. Are you letting us go now?
If you want. Well, I've got like maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Now, why don't you hang out a few more minutes here? Otherwise, it's dead air. Okay. But I did want to thank you again before I forget, because we have Dave and Becky coming up next with Shiny Side Out. So please stay tuned for them, of course, following from Down Under. They always have some interesting information as well. Is there anything you want to add as a final word or summary here? Billy, do you have anything you'd like to add for our listeners tonight?
Well, I'm not a political person, and only thing I deal with is what I've seen, touched, heard, and been there with. I don't go there with the thought that there's money in it or anything like that. We are here to give out information that is factual, not a fantasy. These are real things that are happening around us that most people don't see or understand. That includes HAARP, the chemtrails, Morgellons. They're there. Mm-hmm. And people are denying. And people have to come around and have a sense of reality that these things are there. Absolutely. It's undeniable. I mean, honestly, I can't figure out why people can't understand that or comprehend it unless it's just they're kind of mind controlled into just looking away. Well, it is that cognitive dissonance, and it's kind of like this latest French happening. Now people are distracted by that. The distraction quotient is so high. It's as if we want to be distracted. We want drama. We want even possibly negative drama.
in order to distract ourselves from what we're going to do in relationship to the knowledge we have. That's the key. That's the key. Don't allow yourself to be distracted, please.
I totally agree, and it's all about distraction out here in this weird world. We'll have to touch again, I guess, at some point in the continuum next time I connect with you guys, but you did touch a little bit on the smart grid, and coming from the Colorado area, they tested the smart grid in Boulder. I don't know if you were familiar with that or not.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I suspect that they've actually deployed that in all cities now. Have they or no?
Oh, they must.
Yeah, it's almost everywhere now. It's not all turned on, but it's all installed.
Right. And that's pretty much them having remote access and control over everything in your home. Is that correct?
Well, it's a matter of application. Just in the digital age, it's an application. Mm-hmm. Everything operates digitally on an application.
Yeah, I just don't like that. I don't like people controlling and manipulating my environment. And that's pretty much what we're dealing with. A virtual scene, a virtual field.
It's not there until they send the application, it's filed, and then it operates from that application, just like on your cell phone.
Right. I can't remember the year they started that in Boulder, but I know it was several years back. I remember when they were doing it.
Well, Boulder is right there in the belly of the beast, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, Colorado's changed quite a bit in frequency.
Yeah, Boulder and Superior both.
Superior, Colorado?
Yep.
That's my old stomping ground. That's where I was inducted, actually, in 2004. Well, we'll have to talk about that off air. What do you know about Superior?
Raytheon is out there at the airport.
Oh, okay.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah. Boy, I've just learned something new every day here. My goodness. So what's down the road for you, Billy? What are you going to be working on the next couple weeks or months?
Trying to survive, maintain myself underground as much as possible. Coming up with food that nobody else will eat.
Yeah? Are you growing your own food?
In a way.
In a way. I make dishes out of roadkill and stuff like that.
Do you really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, a lot of people will be doing that. If we lose our power grids, we might go in the opposite direction. A lot of people will have to learn how to fend for themselves.
Well, that, and I dumpster dive for food and computers and whatever.
Do you know how to revamp computers?
Yeah, I sure do. I got 16 computers in between 3 locations.
My goodness. And are you doing any public speaking anywhere, Elana?
Possibly one in Canada later in the spring. But otherwise, I'm trying to fend off distraction myself so I can write.
Okay.
And myself, I cannot go public because I'm a target.
Well, you stay safe, and thank you both very, very much. It's been a pleasure and an honor. And thank you, everybody, for listening, and have a great week.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Elana. Thank you, Billy.
Be with you in a moment.
Listening to Revolution